Hello folks, this video is for you to access a model analysis on an existential sentence in English and its counterpart in Spanish. The sentence that I will be focusing on is "there's no question," and I've taken it from an exercise that you have in our handbook. This is page 45 and page 46 in our handbook, and is a sentence that belongs to this excerpt from a play by Arthur Miller. The sentence in question is the one that uses this very same word. There's no question here. And its counterpart, so this is towards the end of the English excerpt, and its counterpart in Spanish, the one provided by this translated version of the play, es indudable. So we'll analyze these two, there's no question and es indudable, and we'll also provide a different rendition for there's no question into Spanish to see also how the analysis differs from the one that this one gives way to. So one is indudable, the one that is chosen by the translator, and another rendition that is also possible is to say no hay dudas. So there's no question is an existential sentence, and I would like us to go to this source that we know you don't have as you know, obligatory reading material this year, but it's still a very, you know, valid and good source for you to go to whenever you would like to expand on the topics that we are covering. This is a source that is generally used by the professors in grammar practice and grammar 1 in the degree course that you all belong to. This is first and second years. So that's why we don't want to, just continue using the same source, and that's why we use Huddleston and Pullum's A Student's Introduction to English Grammar. But in case you would like to have, further, content on the same topics that we are covering, you can always resort to this source here. It's, a classic in grammar. So if we go to this particular section 1830 in this book, here at the bottom, you have this information, which is, I presume, known to you, considering you're having been students of Grammar 2 already. So a sentence usually begins here, I'm beginning here. A sentence usually begins with reference to given information and proceeds to provide new information. This is what we take as, the canonical, the basic way in which information packaging and structuring is, present in sentences. But there are many occasions, say the authors, when we must make statements whose content does not fall neatly into these two categories. And here now, I'm skipping a few lines. In serving to bring the existence of an entire proposition to the attention of the hearer, the resultant constructions are known as existential sentences. And the options are, there's a car blocking my way, I have a car blocking my way. or there are many students in financial trouble. We have quite a few species of animals in danger of extinction, or one finds quite a few species or many students in financial trouble. So we have these three alternatives: the employment of an existential sentence that contains an unstressed there are many students in financial trouble, and also this construction with have, or the one that begins with one finds and then the entity that is presented into discourse. So this is just to call your attention to the fact that although we call the sentence that we are focusing on existential sentences, you may have, two other options that are also existential, in that they also present an entity into discourse, introduce an entity into discourse. Okay, so now there is no question, so there's no question at all, I think, goes the original here. What we're dealing with is an existential sentence that is called by Huddleston and Pullum, the source that you do have, a bare existential. Bare in the sense that there seems to be no corresponding basic version to it. We cannot have, and this is what the asterisk marks here, no question is. For the verb be normally requires an internal complement. So we need the arrangement with the unstressed there to have a grammatical form. There's no question. This is what is meant by labeling this type of existential sentence as bare existential. This is the type of existential sentence that seems not to have a more basic counterpart associated with it. When watching the video that Micaela prepared for another sentence, another existential sentence, the one that you have in, let me find it, here in the handbook on page 50, she produced a model analysis of this sentence for "in a mysterious city referred to as London lived a brother," and then you could add "there lived a brother." This would be an instance of a different sort of existential sentence, in particular a presentational existential sentence, which of course, when you do have there here, there lived a brother, you can argue that there's a more basic counterpart associated with it. First, you can say what you have here written out, lived a brother without there. And of course, you can have the canonical arrangement for English sentences and say a brother lived in a mysterious city referred to as London. So beginning with the subject, which is of course more basic than this arrangement here. Okay. Now, question is the word here, is the predicate in semantic terms that functions as predicator. And question is a nominal predicate, is a noun, right? So, in order for us to have a sentence, we need to have a verb that is finite. One of the definitions of sentence establishes that in order for us to have a sentence, we need a subject and we need a finite verb, right? So, if question is not a verb, then we need a verb, in this case it is the verb to be, that helps us have a sentence insofar as we need a finite form that shows tense, aspect, and mood in order for us to have a sentence. And in addition, we need the verb to contain the predicate that cannot inflect for tense, aspect, or mood, and cannot just make sense in a sentence without a verb containing it and providing for these categories that are necessary in any sentence, be it English or Spanish. Therefore, we have a non-verbal predicate question, which is zero place. So it has no argument structure. It selects for no referring expressions, right? Semantically, it is just fine by itself. However, in order for us to have a sentence, we need the verb to be, to function as container of the non-verbal predicate and to provide the inflectional information that is necessary to have a sentence. That is tense, aspect, and mood. So this is what is, right? Does. No is a determiner, a negative determiner that, helps make up the noun phrase, no question, that is brought, into existence, whose existence is declared by the mechanism that is part of an existential sentence. And then, given the fact that existential sentences have this subject, no question, let's write subject here. At the end, the technical term is displaced. A displaced subject we have to have, considering the type of language English is, an expletive pronoun. So this is an expletive pronoun filling in the preverbal subject slot that is left empty when the displaced subject, no question, is located where it is, which is at the end of the sentence. This is the entity, no question, that is brought, to the attention of the hearer. This is the entity whose existence is declared by this existential mechanism. But the moment this entity, which is the subject of the sentence, is displaced, is put post-verbally, then, considering the type of language English is, there must be an expletive pronoun, such as this one there, that fills in the preverbal canonical subject slot. Now, with no hay dudas, I will begin with this option in Spanish. What we have, in fact, is the verb haber. Haber as verbo impersonal transitivo. But it is transitivo. This label indicates that there must be a direct object involved. If we go to RAE, in the manual, Nueva Gramática de la Lengua Española, de manual, point 41.4.3, in which RAE tackles en personales con haber, hacer, ser, estar, dar, ir, in particular subsection A, there, you have, el verbo haber se usa como impersonal en español, tanto si se refiere a la presencia de fenómenos naturales como si no es así. hay truenos, relámpagos, viento, rocío. That would be a natural type of phenomenon. Or sigue habiendo problemas, right? That is not a natural type of phenomenon. Now, al ser impersonal, transitivo, goes RAE, haber no concuerda con su argumento, habla de que haber tiene un argumento que desempeña la función de complemento directo. So this is important to understand that although it is an impersonal type of verb that selects for no subject, it does select for one argument. And this argument is required for by the meaning of haber, algo hay, right? But functions as complemento directo, uses RAE, o objeto directo. Okay? So, the verb is transitive. Although it is impersonal, it is transitive, therefore it has an internal argument, that is to say, a direct object, but has no external argument, meaning it has no subject. So, as you can see here, haber selects for one argument. The argument is associated with the theta role, the semantic role of theme. Therefore, it is a one-place predicate. Okay? Because dudas is then selected for by the verb haber. Okay? However, in Spanish, we don't see the employment of an expletive pronoun, right? But what Di Tullio explains in her chapter, La estructura de la oración simple, what is postulated is the existence of a null pronoun that is, represented with this symbol here, that is postulated to exist, that serves to explain the verbal morphology, why the verb surfaces up, has this specific form at the level of surface structure, which is a third person type of inflectional morphology. It is tercio personal. Instead of showing, a different form, this is the form it appears in. Therefore, the postulate is that there is, this null pronoun represented like that, with that symbol, that helps explain the form that the verb takes, tercio personal. So there's non-correspondence regarding syntax, right? Because we have no counterpart to this unstressed expletive pronoun there in Spanish. And there's also non-correspondence regarding semantics. For in English we have a noun, question, a non-verbal predicate, zero place, right? I haven't written that out, so we have question, a non-verbal predicate that selects for no argument, therefore it is zero place, a zero place predicate. And then, given it is a non-verbal predicate, then we have the employment of is, right, the verb to be, that provides containment for this non-verbal predicate, a nominal predicate. Different from haber, which has argument structure of its own, does select an argument that has the theta role of theme, okay? And thus we have a differentiation in terms of semantics, in addition to a differentiation with respect to the syntax. Now, if the choice is, translation choice for there's no question is es indudable, what we are before is an instance of indudable, an adjective, not a noun as in question, but an adjective, indudable, that also has argument structure of its own. It does select for an argument, and this argument has the theta role, the semantic role of theme. Therefore, indudable is a one-place predicate, the same as the same as nothing, because question is zero place. So this one is one place. So this is where the similarity comes in. Indudable, since it is like question before a non-verbal predicate, it requires the copulative verb, right? The copulative verb to be, ser, to contain it, and to express the flexional information of tense, of mood, of person. Without the verb to be here in es indudable, we wouldn't have a sentence, because in order for us to have a sentence, we need to have a finite form, a finite verbal form. So this one, the fact that indudable does have an argument structure of its own and is one place, is indicated here. There is an argument, there is a referring expression, which is not explicit, in its canonical way, we have no explicit subject. We have nothing there, but this is not the same as this nothing. For this one in yellow points to the subject being null. This one, when we have es indudable, we do have a referring expression which is not explicit in this sentence, but it is recoverable in the text that this sentence, belongs to. So what is indudable is specified, here. Ese chico va a cambiar, es indudable, lo que pasa es que algunos hombres necesitan más tiempo para sentarse, cómo iba vestido, con su traje azul. La idea del cambio precede a la aseveración de que es indudable ese hecho, por ende toda esta idea de que va a cambiar el chico es indudable. Toda esa idea que está expresada en distintas oraciones, todo eso es indudable. So, all of this is the referring expression, okay? That you can express with the idea, with the pronoun eso, okay? So, existe un argumento, una entidad referencial, pero no está explícita de manera canónica, es decir, mediante un nominal preverbal en esta oración, sino que la evidencia la morfología verbal y el cotexto. Es decir, esto es un sujeto tácito desinencial contra un sujeto aquí impersonal. No tiene sujeto, una oración impersonal. So there's no correspondence regarding syntax between es indudable and there's no question. And also there's no correspondence regarding semantics, because here we have an adjective that does have, argument structure of its own. It is in one place. And here we have a noun with no argument structure of its own. It's a zero place, right? However, this one, es indudable, might be argued to be more convergent to the original in English, there's no question, than the one with a verb such as haber. Why more correspondence or more convergence here? Because we are speaking of a non-verbal predicate as well, as in with question, that also requires the existence of a copulative verb to contain it and to provide the inflectional information of tense, aspect, mood, and person, right? In order for us to have a sentence. But in all other respects, we can still maintain that there's no correspondence between this Spanish sentence and the English original sentence. Thank you very much, folks.